I arrived at the quaint, almost time-forgotten village as the golden hues of sunset were fading into a somber twilight. The narrow cobblestone streets, lined with ancient ivy-clad cottages, seemed to whisper secrets of the past. My heart, a botanist's heart, throbbed with anticipation and a tinge of unease. I'd come to study the enigmatic Lunaris nocturna, a rare nocturnal flower said to bloom only at the stroke of midnight. The villagers, a tight-knit community with weathered faces and wary eyes, received me with a mix of curiosity and veiled apprehension. Their rustic attire and simple ways were a stark contrast to my city-bred mannerisms. An elderly innkeeper, Mrs. Thorne, with her silver hair tightly wound in a bun, offered me lodging. Her eyes, I noticed, carried a depth of sorrow and unspoken fear. My first encounter with the Lunaris nocturna was mesmerizing. In the dead of night, I ventured into the garden, where the moonlight cast a surreal glow on the flowers. They were stunning, petals of deep violet and a heart of glowing emerald, emitting a hypnotic sweet scent. I felt a strange lull, a gentle tug at my consciousness, urging me to step closer, to surrender. As I delved deeper into my research, I uncovered an unsettling folklore. The villagers whispered of the flower's dark nature. They fed on the life force of humans. The eerie garden, they said, lured people in their sleep, leaving behind nothing but empty husks of those who succumbed. I shuddered at the thought, yet a part of me remained skeptically fascinated. The scientific anomaly beckoned me, even as a primal fear took root in my heart. Night after night, I observed the flowers, fighting a relentless battle against the seductive fragrance that filled the air. I documented everything, the peculiar luminescence of the petals, the way the scent seemed to pulsate with an almost sentient intent. I noticed, with a growing sense of dread, the increasing number of empty beds at the inn each morning. The villagers spoke in hushed tones, their eyes haunted by the terror of the nocturnal predator in their midst. One chilling evening, I witnessed a horrifying scene. A young woman, Lily, whom I had befriended, began sleepwalking towards the garden. Her eyes were glazed, her steps eerily graceful. I followed, my heart pounding in my chest as she reached the edge of the garden. The flowers seemed to stir, eagerly awaiting their feast. With a desperate lunge, I pulled her back, breaking the spell. She awoke with a scream, terror etched on her pale face. Confronted with the undeniable truth, I knew I had to act. I began experimenting, trying to find a way to neutralize the flower's hypnotic effects. My lab became a sanctuary and a prison, filled with vials of extracts, ancient tomes, and endless notes. Sleep eluded me, and in my exhaustion I felt the lure of the garden growing stronger, an insidious whisper in my mind. As I delved deeper into the lore, I discovered a forgotten ritual, a potential way to break the deadly cycle. It required a sacrifice, a willing soul to enter the garden under the full moon and confront the heart of the bloom. The weight of the decision crushed me. The village's fate and perhaps my own hung in the balance. I grappled with fear and moral ambiguity, the night of the full moon looming ever closer. The full moon night arrived, casting an eerie silver glow over the village. The air was thick with the scent of Lunaris nocturna, more potent and intoxicating than ever. My mind was a battleground logic and fear, duty and self-preservation clashing violently. With a heavy heart, I made my decision. I would enter the garden armed only with my knowledge and a desperate hope. As I stepped into the moonlit garden, the flowers swayed as if aware of my presence. The scent was overwhelming, wrapping around me like a tangible force. I felt my consciousness slipping, but I clung to my purpose with a tenacious grip. Reaching the heart of the garden, I found the largest bloom, its core pulsating with a malevolent light. In that surreal moment, I performed the ritual, reciting the ancient incantations, offering drops of my own blood. The garden reacted violently, the air shimmering with a palpable malice. I felt the life force draining from my body, the flowers greedily absorbing it, but then a miraculous shift occurred. The blooms began to wither, their glow dimming, the hypnotic scent dissipating. As dawn broke, the garden was a field of withered flowers. Their reign of terror ended. The villagers emerged, disbelief and relief in their eyes. I had survived, but not unscathed. A part of me remained forever entwined with the Lunaris Nocturna, a haunting reminder of the night I faced the abyss and prevailed. The village slowly returned to life, but the memory of the sinister blooms lingered, a chilling testament to the mysteries and dangers hidden in nature's depths. The day the piano arrived, the air in my small, sunlit apartment seemed to hum with anticipation. As a struggling musician, finding such a majestic grand piano at an estate sale for a pittance was nothing short of a miracle. Its ebony surface gleamed under the soft light, the ivory keys inviting a touch. I remember running my fingers over them, feeling the smooth, cool texture, unaware of the chilling journey I'd embarked upon. From the very first night, the piano sang. Its melodies, intricate and haunting, filled my dreams, weaving through my consciousness like a siren's call. I would wake up to find the piano playing by itself, notes floating in the dim moonlight that filtered through the curtains. The music was mesmerizing, unlike anything I had ever heard, sending shivers down my spine, yet holding me captive with its beauty. As days passed, my obsession with the music grew. I would sit for hours, trying to replicate the nocturnal symphonies, my hands moving with a fervor I hadn't known before. The outside world faded into a distant echo. Friends, gigs, the bustling city life, nothing mattered except the piano and its eerie serenades. Then the apparitions began. Faint at first, like wisps of smoke in the corner of my eye. Gradually they grew clearer, ghostly figures dressed in garbs from different eras, their eyes hollow, their expressions forlorn. They would stand around the piano watching me play, silent guardians bound to the instrument. A chill settled in my heart as I realized they were the previous owners, each carrying a story of tragedy linked inexorably to the piano. My life spiraled into a nocturne of shadows and whispers. The apartment, once a haven, now felt oppressive, heavy with the presence of the spectral audience. I researched the piano's history, uncovering grim tales of its owners, an 18th century composer who vanished mysteriously, a jazz musician found lifeless at the keys, a child prodigy who disappeared into thin air. Each story ended with the piano being passed on, leaving behind sorrow and unanswered questions. I noticed changes in myself, a gauntness in my face, dark circles under my eyes, a constant tremor in my hands. The music consumed me. It was all I could think about, all I wanted to play. Even as fear gnawed at my mind, the allure of the melodies was irresistible. I began to compose, pouring my soul into the music, unaware of the price each note demanded. One evening, a chilling realization struck me. I saw my reflection in the piano's glossy surface. But I wasn't alone. A ghostly figure stood beside me, its hand on my shoulder, a sorrowful, knowing look in its eyes. In that moment, I understood. The piano was claiming me, absorbing me into its cursed legacy. Each piece I composed, each note I played, was a step closer to joining the ranks of the tormented souls. In a desperate attempt to break the cycle, I tried to rid myself of the piano, but it was futile. Buyers would back out at the last moment, movers would fail to show up, and once the piano even returned to my apartment, as if by some dark magic after being taken away. I was trapped in a macabre waltz, orchestrated by an entity far more powerful than I had ever imagined. The boundaries between reality and the spectral world blurred. I lived in a perpetual twilight, the apartment a stage for the ghostly figures who now roamed freely, their mournful whispers filling the air. I felt their sorrow, their unfulfilled desires, merging with my own. The piano's music was now a cacophony of all their voices, a symphony of despair that I couldn't escape. In my weakened state, a plan formed, a final composition, a requiem for myself and the lost souls. I poured everything into it, my fear, my regret, my longing for freedom. The piano seemed to understand, the keys responding with a fervent energy. The ghosts gathered around me, their faces somber, as if they knew this was the end. As I played the last note of the requiem, a profound silence fell. The oppressive energy lifted, and for a moment, there was peace. Then a searing pain shot through my body, an excruciating symphony of agony, as if the piano was extracting its final toll. My vision blurred, the room spinning, the faces of the ghosts fading into the darkness. I awoke to a serene quietness, the morning sun casting a gentle glow across the room. The piano was gone, leaving behind an empty space. My hands, once trembling and frail, were now still, my body free from the haunting melodies. The curse was broken, but at a cost I was yet to comprehend. The echoes of the enchanted keys lingered, a haunting melody that would forever resonate in the depths of my soul. I remember the day I found the mirror tucked away in a dusty corner of an old thrift store. It was an elegant piece, its ornate silver frame adorned with intricate carvings that hinted at a bygone era. Its surface was unblemished, reflecting the dimly lit store with an uncanny clarity. I felt drawn to it, compelled by its antique charm. Little did I know I was inviting a nightmare into my quaint, sun-dappled apartment. The first time I noticed something amiss, a chill crept down my spine. My reflection, usually an obedient mimic, moved independently, its eyes glaring at me with a hostility that seemed to seep through the glass. I shook my head in disbelief, attributing the anomaly to exhaustion. But as days passed, the reflections grew more disturbing, showing me in acts of violence, aggression, things I would never dream of doing. I tried to ignore it, to convince myself it was a trick of the light or a figment of my overworked mind. But the mirror's presence became oppressive, its silver frame gleaming mockingly in the morning light. My nights were restless, plagued by nightmares of the horrific acts I saw in the mirror. I kept it covered with a cloth, hoping to block out the haunting images. But their imprint lingered in my mind, an unshakable specter. In a desperate attempt to rid myself of the cursed object, I took it back to the thrift store. Relief washed over me as I left it behind, but it was short-lived. The next morning, I found the mirror back in my apartment, its frame glistening more malevolently than ever. The realization that I was trapped with this sinister artifact filled me with a dread that clung to me like a second skin. The mirror's reflections became increasingly personal and terrifying. It showed me not just committing acts of violence, but also enacting tragic events yet to come. The images were vivid, visceral, and deeply disturbing. I saw loved ones in peril, accidents waiting to happen, all linked to my actions. The line between reality and the mirror's twisted visions began to blur, leaving me in a constant state of panic and paranoia. I confided in my best friend Sarah, hoping she would see the madness in the mirror and validate my fears. But when she looked into it, she saw nothing unusual, her reflection mimicking her perfectly. Her concerned eyes met mine in the mirror, but all I could see was another harrowing scene playing out behind her unsuspecting reflection. I felt isolated, trapped in a personal hell that no one else could perceive. The mirror's malevolence seeped into every aspect of my life. I started seeing flashes of the horrific scenes in my daily life, a constant reminder of the impending doom that seemed to loom over me. My own reflection became a source of terror. I avoided mirrors at all costs, but the images haunted me, an ever-present specter in my peripheral vision. Determined to break free from the mirror's curse, I attempted to destroy it. I hurled it against the wall, but it fell to the floor unscathed. I tried smashing it with a hammer, but the tool bounced off as if the glass was made of steel. Each failed attempt left me more desperate and afraid, the realization dawning on me that the mirror was not just an object, but a malevolent entity with a will of its own. In a moment of clarity, amidst the chaos, I understood that the mirror fed on my fear. I decided to confront it, to face the horrors in the reflection with defiance. Standing before the mirror, I steeled myself against the nightmarish visions. But what I saw this time was different. It was me, but older, haggard, my eyes empty of life. The reflection whispered in a voice that was mine, yet laced with malice, revealing that it was my future self, trapped within the mirror, a prisoner of my own making. The revelation shook me to my core. I realized that the horrific acts and tragedies were not just random visions, but a path leading to my own damnation. The mirror was a portal to a future where I had succumbed to the darkness, a warning and a curse intertwined. I was seeing the consequences of my own choices, a future that I was unwittingly crafting with each moment of fear and surrender. With newfound resolve, I decided to change my fate. I began by helping those around me, averting the small tragedies I had seen in the mirror. Each act of kindness, each decision to choose a different path, seemed to weaken the mirror's hold over me. The malevolent gleam in the glass dulled, the haunting visions becoming less frequent. In the final act of defiance, I covered the mirror one last time, not out of fear, but as a symbol of my rejection of its dark prophecy. I left it in an abandoned house, far from anyone who might stumble upon it. As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure, a chapter ending. I had faced the darkest parts of myself and emerged stronger. The mirror's curse was broken, but the lessons it taught me about choice, fate, and the shadows within would stay with me forever.